o'clock, and I am calling this September 22nd meeting of the Economic Development and Housing Commission to order. I'm sorry, I've forgotten. Do we start with roll call or do I read the announcement first?
I believe we start with roll call.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Dawson? Okay, absent. Commissioner Guerra?
Present.
Commissioner Kim? Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Singh? Commissioner Thornton?
Present. Sorry, I was on mute.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Thomas, I believe you're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. And Chairperson White?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right. I see we have Commissioner Kim joining us.
Okay.
We'll wait just a moment until he's connected. But while we're waiting, I will read that pursuant to the governor's executive order, members of the WESAC Economic Development and Housing Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via teleconference. You are hopefully have joined us from home on Wave Cable Channel 20 or watching the live stream event. And I hope that you have submitted your comments already to the board by 5 p.m. on September 22nd. If you want to submit comments to the board, they need to be done by email at 5 o'clock on the day of the meeting and in the subject line. All comments received by 5 are provided to the commissioners and posted on the website, and they become part of the meeting record. To make a verbal comment during the meeting, join using the Zoom link or the phone number, and I will request public comment during item 1A before the consent agenda. Once I've announced the public comment period, if you'd like to make a comment, please either use your raise hand button on Zoom, or if you've joined us by phone, press *9. And when it's your turn, the clerk will call you by name and you can unmute your microphone. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And once your public comment is ended, your microphone will be muted again. And clerk, would you like to resume the roll call?
Yes, please. Commissioner Kim.
Here.
Thank you. And there were, my apologies, there was no comments from the public for this meeting.
Thank you. And in item 1A, would anybody who has joined us by phone or Zoom like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand or press *9 on your telephone. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 2, and I think that is yours, Ms. Richards.
Good evening, Chairperson White and members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with all of you and talk about the past year and a half and all the small business and other business support that we've been privileged to provide along with our chamber partners. I must say I had to review my calendar over the last, since August, and boy, because that seems like so long ago, and really refresh my memory on all the things that we have done and have been doing. I remember that, and I'm going to make my remarks brief because I know that Denise has a great presentation for you, but let me just say that when we began this effort in March of 2020, we were having weekly meetings with the chamber and their leadership to really talk about, Denise and her crew, to talk about what do we need to do immediately, what do the businesses need most right away. And I'm happy to say that by August, we were only having bi-weekly meetings. So that tells you we really didn't know what was coming. And I think that's really the takeaway, is that, by August, we really didn't know what we were in for, but we knew that we weren't done yet. So And prior to that, we realized that what we were doing wasn't enough, even during the summer, and businesses were still struggling. The pandemic was raging. And so in May and June, we went to the city council and got an additional scope of work approved that was really focused on our retail and our more of our service-oriented businesses that really had been shut down and really had felt the worst of the pandemic. And so that's when we launched, the chamber launched Westside Takeout and Support Dreams, and those were absolutely critical to supporting those businesses that had reopened after being closed for so long. So all these efforts, we really, I guess the essential message is that we were constantly pivoting, just like our businesses were, is we had to constantly be pivoting and figuring out what the next right thing to do or right things to do were. And I'm happy to say that, really through the chamber's leadership, and I credit both Denise and her staff, but also the leadership in our business community. Without their leadership and support, we would not have been able to have a Yolo County Small Business Grant Program. We would not have been able to have a West Sacramento Grant Program for our businesses. And what we learned later was that was absolutely a life for them. And we got many, many thank yous and many phone calls just, thanking us profusely for that little bit of help that we gave them that helped them kind of really threw them a lifeline during that time. So I don't want to make too many more remarks. You have my report. I think I would just say that, the chamber has strengthened our connections into the business community, and they've continued to, in this period from August until now, really now we're doing business visits. We're doing virtual business visits that is required as their part of their base contract. But we've also continued to assist and really focus efforts on helping them get through this next phase. As we all know, we're not done yet. So without any further remarks, unless the commissioners have any questions for me, I will turn it over to my partner, Ms. Denise Domke.
Hi, good evening, Chair White and commissioners. It's great to be here. Several of you I've had an opportunity to meet, several of you I've not, and I look forward to a time when we can meet in person. Share conversations about the business community and economic development in the city of West Sacramento. So just a little bit of background. The chamber has had a contract with the city for over 20 years for services related to economic development. It's a successful relationship, as Diane mentioned. I've been in this role with the chamber for 13 years. Prior to that, I served as chair of their board and on their board of directors. So have an almost congruent 20-year relationship with the city working on these kinds of projects. And I have a commitment not to read to you what you have probably already read. We appreciate the time and your commitment to making this a better place to live, work, and do business. So I hope you have a copy of the report. I know that you do. I thought I'd hit some high points for you, and then I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Diane, and so I broke this report out into the schedule of performance that's listed as an attachment to our general contract. And one of the key things that the city's economic development department and the chamber have done for years now is outreach into businesses directly. We identify the key businesses that we'd like to gather information from. The contract requires that we do for a year. As you can see, this is just off the top of my head. Typically, in a different time, this report would include the number of employees they have and their lease information and how long they'll be in their location. But by necessity, because of both remote working and the constraints of COVID, we weren't able to make in-person visits, and this is just a small sampling of the businesses that the city and the chamber have been working together to support. you'll notice there's, in most instances, in fact, in every instance, there's not a lot of detail. And that's because the nature of those conversations was really confidential. Many of them starting from how do we survive and what can you do for us and how do you help us, to assisting them with business skills and making connections to banks and CPAs and accountants. But it's a broad range. It's everything from manufacturing and high tech to large manufacturing to restaurants and new businesses that refer to us from the city and or from electeds to see if we couldn't assist and help, and some ongoing contractual and real estate enterprises. That's about all I can get into with that. We continue to outreach to new businesses. Certainly, a good thing that's come out of meeting. And Diane talked about we met once a week. There were times in March, April, and May of 2020 that we met 3 times a week. We met 3 times a day. We were in constant contact with each other because the response needed to be agile and quick and effective. This was included in our last report, but just to fill everyone in, together within 3 weeks of the first shutdown of the economy, this team, the city chamber team, surveyed businesses and got a tremendous response, and then followed up with 3 more surveys. So, and that's possible because we continue to work with the city to update contacts for businesses that have submitted business license lists to the city. Power hours. So 4 of us pretty much invented that. On the 16th, Yolo County began restricting movement in the March the 16th of 2020, Yolo County began restricting movement in and out of businesses. And I think our first power hour that year was 10 days later. We used the business license list, the chambers list, social media, every platform we could think of to let the business owners in the business community know that this was available to them. And since we've last talked, since July of 2020, we've done 9 power hours. Highlights of those would be Yolo County Small Business Grants. We've done 2 of those. We're able to bring in county supervisors, folks from Yolo County, businesses that are interested in details on those grants. And then, of course, the small business grant that the city offered, which in many cases made the difference in those businesses staying open and closing, especially because at the same time, through the leadership of the Economic Development Department in the city, we were really engaged and active in advocating for outside dining and changes that needed to be made to, not from a safety standpoint, certainly, but sidewalks were blocked and, businesses expanded so that they could stay open in protected environment. I will say that Brian Johnson with West Sac Fire Department was also really helpful, and Randy Goodwin with the city, really helpful in getting out there, looking to see what's safe and getting them certified as quickly as they could. That was a game changer. And now we move into things like, there's what would be a more traditional city chamber role. SB 1383 is taking effect. And so we've had a series of power hours and opportunities for local businesses to learn and develop plans with both the city of West Sacramento and Waste Management for their organic waste recycling, which is mandatory by state law. Next up, we predict, we're still continuing with power hours. We are waiting for Cal OSHA to issue guidelines related to the federal, how the federal government, the president's recent vaccine mandate how that translates to local businesses. And although it impacts primarily businesses over 100 employees, you might be surprised to know that there are great, about 80% of our businesses are small business. The other 20% are large employers. And so as soon as we have those guidelines, then Diane and I will work together and get a couple on the books and reach out to the business community to get that information to them. In this cycle, the chamber produced a series of videos that were really very popular, highlighting kind of the human side of who owns a restaurant and the impact, how your business could help them. And those were tremendously well received. You have the details in your packet. To date, we've had over 14,000 unique views of that series of videos. So we know that the businesses were well appreciated. We chose the restaurants we chose a neighborhood restaurant down by Bridgeway Lake and Bridgeway Islands. We chose a family-owned legacy restaurant in the Southport Town Center. We chose an independent dine-in and takeout restaurant on Lake near 80. And we chose a new use of a long-term existing building on West Cap. And we know that those have been effective. We did a few events. Most recently, we had a great night at Sutter Hill Park and did State of the City. We had 254 guests following the Yolo County guidelines. We started with a group of very happy people, all dressed up, eating dinner in their lap in a baseball stadium, and ended with fireworks. So it was good to see everyone. We were very, very safe and very, very careful. That was a good turnout. We also we did the tree lighting in 2020. We had another shutdown on December the 10th, and anticipating that, we chose to do the 2020 tree lighting virtual. There's a list of folks that participated and what the program looked like. It was really well received. We're in the process of planning 2021 tree lighting, and again, planning it two ways. Planning it that it's outdoors and that folks are together, watching really carefully what's happening, any guidelines or additional mandates that the state might come out with. And we're also planning for how we could take that virtual again if we needed to, and or how we could modify so that it becomes kind of a drive-through event. So I guess we're planning 3 events. Happy to answer any questions. I would say, I see you, Commissioner Kim. I would end with, this is a unique and effective partnership. We say that the city and the chamber have a collaborative relationship and appropriate. So we don't always agree on everything, but we are comfortable enough to sit down at the same table and make good things happen for the residents and businesses in West Sacramento. So Commissioner Kim, you had a question?
Yes. First of all, thank you for a great presentation, a great update, and congratulations to all your successes. It was great to hear that you're doing so many surveys of the businesses here in West Sacramento. I guess my question, I had 2 questions. One is, from your perspective, what do you think are the biggest challenges, like either from the survey or from anecdotal, on being able to recruit businesses to West Sacramento? And then on a second note, for SB 1383, noting that you've been meeting with industry, what are the biggest challenges there when it comes to adoption, especially for industry and private sector? Thank you.
Sure. It is my opinion that, and I don't mean, this is not tongue in cheek, this is the biggest challenge right now to bringing new business to West Sacramento. Well, honestly, we continue to bring new business to West Sacramento. I think, the pandemic, certainly for those businesses that are service related businesses, but we continue to, and by we, I mean, folks in this Zoom continue to work together to, there's a cannabis testing lab that's coming to West Sacramento. There are, we've got manufacturing and distribution coming to West Sacramento. There are things in the works that, we can't really talk about. So I would say, honestly, given it's a pandemic and there's the businesses that are well capitalized and that see the opportunity are stepping up. And I think you'll be surprised to see. And even the two the two new businesses I listed here they're restaurants, brave restaurateurs. And they're having, one of them is open and he's having success, and the other one will be open soon in a really prime location. There's upcoming great news about a really interesting use of a highly exposed corner in the Washington district that will soon have it. There'll be more to talk about that. So while it's true that it's an effort that never ceases, it's also true that well-capitalized businesses are still interested in doing business in West Sacramento. If there were a hindrance to that, if I'm being honest, it would be our fee structure. We need to make amendments to our fee structure. And it's not just the usual developer issues around, the traffic impact fees. I don't want to pay for parks. It's not that at all. It's the basic fee structure to build the kind of higher density housing and businesses, that we want to bring to the community. So we're looking forward to working with the city on the fee structure. And I know that they're making big advances in that direction. Did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. I
had one more question about the SB 1383, but we can cover that next time.
No, and you know what? I can address that because we've had four presentations, and what I hear is that businesses, the city's done a good job of, this has been coming down the pike, right, for almost 2 years, and was supposed to be implemented in the middle of the pandemic, and they bumped it back. So they've had a heads up. Our big manufacturer, distribution, restaurants, they've been informed waste management. If their waste management customers has been really effective in reaching out to them and offering resources. The city is really effective in reaching out to them. So while it took a little bit to get going, and we had the last conversation about this with the business community the second Tuesday, which probably was last Tuesday. And everybody seems pretty confident, both from one of the largest manufacturers that we have here to a business that's, we had representatives from the cannabis industry here because, of course, they're curious about what they do with their organic product. And they seem confident. They seem all right. Now, the deadline hasn't hit, and I'm sure that we'll be doing some follow-up support, primarily the recycling department with the city, but they seem okay. They seem well prepared. Hi, Sunny. Oops, you're muted.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I will second Commissioner Kim's comments about thank you for all that you guys have been working on with the city to help small businesses, especially back in March and April. It's greatly appreciated by not only myself, but I know a lot of people that I work with that own small businesses. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to quickly ask, how do you guys define, I know there's so many different definitions of small business. So how do you guys define small business at the chamber?
So the definition is really more at the city business license list. So we don't define it. Okay. When we're having a power hour, the invitation goes out to everyone on the city's business license. So if you have a business license in West Sacramento, now the challenge in it is if you have a business license and you moved or you changed your email address and you didn't tell the city, then it may not have been that effective. But I mean, a good example of that is as a team, we had 70,000 maps last summer, not the summer of 2020. the chamber distribute using the city's business license list. The chamber distributed over 40,000 masks in 4 days. And the city distributed the other 30,000 masks in, a matter of months. So, and I mean, we got to see lots of micro home-based businesses, still needed to get out and do business. So it's really, we don't define that for the chamber specifically. We don't base membership in our organization based on the number of employees you have. We base it on the kind of exposure you want to have. But the baseline support is the same no matter. And from an outreach standpoint, that's defined by the city's business license. We were, yeah, you're welcome. Can I answer any other questions?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Guerra. I apologize, I'm having trouble with my video, but just curiosity, what type of participation did you get in the power hours?
That's a good question, Commissioner. Thank you. And that's actually how we could judge when businesses were feeling like they were kind of starting to stable out. Some early in the pandemic, we would have 2 a day, and we would have between 30 and 40 people participate. We brought in the SBDC. We brought in every connection we could think of. We had a regional director of the small business, the SBDC, Zoom from his garage because it was the only quiet place. When we know that businesses are, that we've covered a topic, our businesses are leveling out is when we start. But we always have, 10, 15, 20. It depends. Very often we made them industry based, especially early on because the instructions and the need was different. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Chair White, we may be done.
It sounds like it, and I don't believe this was a item that required any action or any motion on our behalf. It was just to listen and ask your questions, and I appreciate that. And Ms. Domke, thank you for joining us, and you are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you are not obligated to do so.
I may take the dog the size of a small goat. I'm still in the office. I may head home, but I would end with, you are all welcome to call the chamber at any time. We want to help. You don't need to be a chamber member, right? We're going to help. So give us a call if you have questions, if you have ideas. We're here. And congratulations, because this partnership, this city chamber partnership, is remarkable in the region and the envy of Yolo County. So thanks for your guidance in that.
Thank you very much. Yep, round of applause. All right, and we will move on to our consent agenda, which is the approval of our May 26th meetings. And I assume everybody had a chance to review those. Any comments, questions, corrections on our meeting minutes? And our next item on the consent agenda then is the presentation of the Home Run Micro-Credentialing Program, and that is over to Mr. Miller.
Chairperson White, I do have to take a motion and a second and a roll call for the minutes.
Oh, thank you. I thought we did both consent agenda items together. So thank you for. Okay. We can certainly. All right, let's go for I need a motion for the minutes, please. And make sure you say your name to make sure that we capture it all for posterity.
This is Commissioner Guerra. I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
And do we have a second?
Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Kim. I second.
All right, and Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll call?
Definitely. Commissioner Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Kim,
Yes.
Commissioner Thornton,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Present.
and Chairperson White.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we can move on to our presentation from Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chairperson White, and members of the commission. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Do I show my slides, or is someone going to show those for me?
I believe we have the PowerPoint in our commission PowerPoint, but if you have it handy and that's faster, then I believe that the secretary will need.
Okay. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll share my slide.
Thank you.
Oh, no, disabled. Can't do it.
Nuvi, can you,
Madam Clerk,
can you give him the ability to
Yes.
share screen?
I will. Okay, let me know if it works for you.
Yep. All right. Just a sec here. Okay. That's supposed to, there we go. All right, can everybody see that? All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you about the West Sacramento Home Run and and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our micro-credential program. I want to start with a little bit of background on the Home Run. I think some of you already know about it, but I'll just run quickly through what the Home Run is. In December of 2018, City Council approved these 5 programs, one of which is a digital badges program. And that's the one that I'm going to talk to you about today. Kind of are shifting to using the term micro-credentials rather than digital badges, but that's the program that was approved along with a high-quality preschool program, college savings accounts, paid summer internships for high school students, and the West Sacramento Promise, which has changed a little bit, but essentially along with the state or the Los Rios Foundation provides free community college to West Sacramento high school graduates. The 6th program of the Home Run is a scholarship program, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that tonight. But that one is still in development, and we hope to take a proposal to council on that program within the next couple months. So one of the things that you'll often hear from employers that is a challenge is that they get applications and candidates who are not quite ready for the workplace, or not necessarily ready for success in the workplace. They often don't come with, I'm talking about entry-level workers and applicants. They often don't have the kinds of skills that employers are looking for. Taking initiative, being professional, time management, effective communication, etc. So as a way of addressing this challenge, the Digital Badges program was meant to help students acquire these soft skills, or 21st century skills, or transferable skills, known by a number of different names. Digital badges are, for those who don't know, they're something like the merit badges that you might have seen if you were involved in scouting, but they are online, they're virtual. And so they can be displayed or accessed and verified online. In other words, if you send a link to your digital badge, someone can click on that and they can see that that it actually came from where it says it came from. They are often, as I mentioned, they're often referred to as micro-credentials. They represent kind of a narrow set of skills, and they can be combined so that they add up to kind of a larger credential. And that's what you see on the right there. This is an example from the Aurora Public Schools in Aurora, Colorado. They have a system where it's integrated into their teaching. The badges can be earned, the kind of lower level badges can be earned and combined. And then once that final badge is earned, then the student is awarded that bigger badge up on top. A lot of companies use digital badges to boost their employee skills. Universities, sometimes, and colleges use them to augment classroom instruction. They're great because they offer adult learners who don't have a ton of time a way to kind of improve their skills. There's, as I mentioned in the report, one example of a company that does this is IBM. You can earn these credentials on your own and ultimately get a credential that will allow you to be qualified for cloud computing work. There are some challenges, of course, with digital badges. Because anybody really can issue a digital badge, the quality is not always great. So, in this case, so for example, we used a platform for a while called LRNG. LRNG is used by a variety of organizations across the country. Some of the badges on LRNG were really good, others were not so good. You can earn some places will award badges at kind of like participation badges. If you show up for an event, you get a badge, or if you attend a summer enrichment program, you'll get a badge. In other cases, they are quite meaningful, like the ones that I'm going to talk to you about, and like the ones that IBM issues. In some cases, digital badges don't really mean anything outside of the setting where they were created. And you see this example on the right. This is from a school where those things, you can see the titles of those badges, they're not going to mean anything to anyone outside of that school. Another challenge, of course, is that employers are not familiar with this concept of digital badges. And that's part of what we're going to try to do through our initiative, is educate employers as to how digital badges or micro-credentials can be beneficial to them. And then another challenge is that often the badges, and I alluded to this already, they focus on technical skills, which kind of limit their use. You can only use them within a particular industry. We are, again, focusing on soft skills that are transferable across industries and jobs. So that leads me to the badges or the micro-credentials that we are going to adopt. And I included an attachment with the report. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at that. These Education Design Lab micro-credentials are, in contrast to some of the badges I discussed earlier, they're very well designed, they're very robust. They've been developed over a number of years in cooperation with institutions of higher education, with employers. And through that consultation with employers, they target the most in-demand skills. There's only 8 of them. But they are kind of really comprehensive, and I'll describe a little bit about what they look like. But they, again, they're research-based. They're in use already by a number, and they were developed initially for college-age learners, but they're in use by lots of different types of organizations that serve older learners as well as youth, and they're used in K-12 districts across the country as well. They include a variety of different educational strategies, including reflection, lots of opportunities to practice the skills. They include performance-based assessments. We are going to be partnering. By the way, I mentioned that there's 8 of them. We're going to start with just 3. We're partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, and they have urged. I always tend to want to go big, and Denise has kind of pulled me back to earth and suggested that maybe we start a little smaller. We're going to work with the Chamber to invite a small group of employers to learn more about these credentials and how they can be beneficial. And probably we're going to target employers who've worked with us on our summer internship program. The goal is to convince these employers that the credentials are meaningful, so that they will ideally, at some point, we hope, start to look for those credentials from entry-level applicants, and that those applicants might even receive some sort of an advantage by having them. And an example of that is the city of West Sac. We have a couple of years ago, our HR department agreed to attach give a preference point for applicants who had earned one of our home run digital badges. And what that means is if there is kind of a tie in the score between two applicants, and there's only one slot left for interviews, the scale kind of gets tipped in favor of the one that has a digital badge. So that's one example of how they can be used by employers. And that use by employers encourages youth to earn them. This is kind of what the platform looks like when you're earning one of these digital badges. It's called Visible, or VSBL. As you can see by the time estimates, so first of all, each of the badges or the credentials includes 4 sub-competencies. And you can see here that this particular credential is in critical thinking. The first competency is gathering and assessing relevant information. Next, identifying patterns, question assumptions, and draw conclusions. And then there's an assessment. And if you look at the time for each of these, they estimate 3 hours per module. So these are not easy to earn. They represent pretty deep learning. And as I said, there's lots of different educational strategies included in them. They're designed by assessment professionals and educators, as well as, businesses who are hoping to hire the people who earn them. This is what one of those 4 modules in each badge includes. There's an overview, there's an opportunity to learn, and that includes videos or articles or audio. Then there's an opportunity to practice the skill and contribute to a moderated discussion online. And then there's an assessment. So each module includes an assessment and then a reflection. And then, of course, there's the final assessment for the entire micro-credential. And this is an example of the resources that are part of that learning component of the module. There's these 3, there's actually more than this. This is just all that would fit on the screen, but you can see there's some articles that the learner is expected to read, or there may be videos or audio, etc. So our goal in initiating this micro-credential program is essentially to educate local employers about the value of these micro-credentials. We want to provide a way for young people to learn these soft skills, and we want to provide them with the motivation to learn them. If we educate employers and employers start looking for these credentials, then eventually youth will find out that there is some value in earning credentials, and we hope that will create demand among youth. And we also hope to involve K-12, higher education, and community-based youth service providers to support youth and encourage them to earn the credentials. I mentioned the scholarship program that we're working on. That will also, assuming it gets approved by council, that will also include financial incentives for young people to earn these credentials. So not only will they be encouraged to earn something that can help them find work, but they'll also get some financial reward for it in the form of a scholarship. So why am I here? Why am I talking to you? We just want to get the word out, and we know that you have connections to business leaders, professionals. Some of you may be parents, and you know other parents, youth as well. We just want to get the word out that this is going to be happening. We want to encourage employers to participate in the training so they can learn about these credentials, what's valuable about them, why they should use them. And we want to, so that ultimately they will use the competencies that are included in these credentials as a way of attracting candidates. So I think if you have a business, and again, we just started the process. We haven't even signed on the dotted line yet. So we're not quite ready to launch, but once these things are launched, we will let you know. And I hope that you will, take it, learn more about them, take the opportunity to maybe participate in our training, and ultimately hire or make some of your hiring decisions based on who has these credentials, because we think they're pretty solid. And once we get access to the platform, I'd be happy to kind of walk anybody through it if you're interested. But that is basically what I wanted to talk to you about, and I went through that pretty quickly. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond. Ms. Thornton?
Hi, Mr. Miller. Thank you so much. That I haven't heard of that program before, and I think that could be really beneficial in our city. Thank you for that presentation. I think it was very thorough, even if it was quick. So I did have a couple questions. I was wondering, have you rolled this idea out to any companies here in West Sacramento? And if so, what has the initial perception been? So that's question number one. Number two is, how many entry-level positions do we currently have open in the city of West Sacramento that would be a good fit for these kids or entry-level people taking this course to move into? Number three is, if they're not looking in West Sacramento, can they transfer? How widely used is this program that they might be able to use these digital badges outside of the city of West Sacramento?
Okay, so as to businesses being engaged in the process, we haven't done that yet. As I said, we're at the very beginning of this. We are working with the chamber to bring together a small group of businesses that we kind of already have relationships with through our internship program to get their input. For example, out of the 8, we're going to choose 3. I'm going to use their input to identify the 3 that they think we should focus on. As far as the kind of transferability of the credentials, well, so your second question was about the number of entry-level positions. So the credentials are meant to be applicable to any field. So I don't know the answer to the number of entry-level positions that are available in West Sacramento, but if you're asking if they would be applicable to some positions and not others, I think my argument would be that they're useful in just about any field you would want to go into. And so we think that if employers understand what they mean, and that's our challenge, is to make sure that they do understand what they mean, they're going to find some value in these credentials, and so they're going to enable youth who earn them and who share them with potential employers. They're going to enable them to kind of be more attractive candidates in, we hope, many different fields, and not just in West Sacramento, but elsewhere as well. But of course, it depends on the ability. If the employer doesn't understand this concept, then it's going to take a little bit of work by the young person who has the credential to kind of explain it. So that is a challenge. But here in West Sacramento, we think we can work with the chamber to educate our local business community so that we won't necessarily have to rely on the youth themselves to do the educating. Does that answer the questions?
It does. Thank you so much.
Sure. Commissioner Kim.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Thornton, for those great questions, and thank you, Mr. Miller, for the response there. I had a question just in regards to your engagement with current businesses, knowing that the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce has done 3 different business survey or 3 different surveys of businesses. Have they been engaged? Have these questions been asked And if not yet, is there a chance that you could work with the West Sacramento Chamber so some of these ideas could be flushed out? Because I'm already thinking out of the 8, like on a marketing standpoint, it's just easier to like focus on one that is super highly valuable than like a lot of different badges that are, it could be kind of overwhelming. Secondly, I think Commissioner Thornton's point about, are there any success stories thus far? I think like a lot of small business owners, that's important for them to know that there's proven track record. And maybe, and this is kind of a comment, the success story doesn't have to be from West Sacramento, right? I'm imagining digital badges are, there's other cities and counties. It'd be great to hear what other cities and counties have done this successfully, where they've been able to increase entry-level job intake, where they've been able to really actively engage and solve some of these workforce development issues. So any of those success stories from any employers, even outside of West Sacramento, I think could be interesting. But any success stories in West Sac would be most interesting. And then lastly would be about this training for the employers. I'm like curious what that looks like. I'm myself an employer, and so I'm hoping it's not too intense. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm the training itself. We're still deciding what that would look like, and essentially, I guess it's more of a. It's not so much of a training as this is what they. And so, we're not looking for employers to do any. We don't have specific things that we want employers to do other than to be aware of what these credentials represent. So I don't know what the length of time commitment would be. I mean, I think it's basically probably just a one-time meeting. And again, we're not asking for every employer in West Sacramento to come to one of these events. We have not fully fleshed out our strategy for educating the business community about these credentials. This is the beginning stages of all of this. So certainly am open to suggestions from you and other commissioners as to how to do that. And I'm sorry, I think I've forgotten. Was there another question?
Two other questions. One is any success stories from other cities and or counties that have a similar program, so-called, like micro credentials, and because I think if you were to go to these employers and be like, hey, look at Palo Alto, we did this, it was super success. I mean, I'm not saying we're the same, but like any other, because this is new for West Sac, we may not have success stories here, but I imagine like success stories anywhere else could give a little bit more confidence. What could that look like? And then lastly, are you working with the Chamber of Commerce at all? Like they're doing all these surveys. Is there a way, like some of these, like which of the 8, which is most valuable to you? Can you rank the 8, so-called digital badges of, your importance or your value or relevance?
So the success story suggestion is a great one. I don't have any right now. I don't, we identified these credentials because of what they contain. And because we, as the home run, are obligated to have some sort of a digital badge program. This one seemed like the one that was most robust to meet that obligation. But I think that's a fantastic idea. And I think you're right. Like people are going to be much more convinced by seeing where it's worked somewhere else. We do work pretty closely with the Chamber. They help us with our internship program. And I am actually in the process of scheduling a meeting with the Education Design Lab that is going to include Denise and Andrea. So, like they're working hand in hand with us on this, and they've they've agreed to help us recruit local businesses and get them involved using one of their surveys. That's a great idea. I've already kind of informally surveyed some of the employers that we work with through the internship program. But I think that's a great idea to get a wider range of feedback. So thank you.
And if I may, Commissioner Kim, the Economic Development and Housing Department is also involved with this initial meeting with EDL and the Chamber. And the reason for that is that we will also be just contacting some of the businesses that we know are hiring right now and just talking to them about it and getting their, their feedback and their suggestions as well. So I think that's a really good suggestion that you have. And the good news is that this is a great time to do this because virtually almost every business in West Sacramento is trying to hire or hiring right now, and they're all struggling because of various, pandemic related things, but also just because businesses have reopened, businesses up. And so I think it's a good time to have that conversation. And so that's why we wanted to bring this presentation to you. We thought it was very relevant. I think with economic development right now, the number one thing that we're hearing from our employers, large, small, manufacturing, tech, everything, is workforce. They need talent. They would like our help getting it. And connecting with just today, my colleague Elijah Ortega and I had arranged a meeting with one of our largest biotech businesses to actually engage with the high school and the community colleges to really try to find that talent pipeline. So I think this is a good time for this program, at least to get some feedback from the employers that we do work with.
Chairperson White.
Jeff, I have one question with my employer hat on and instead of my chair hat on. So as you know, we have hosted an intern every year since the program started and always enjoyed that. And I can certainly see that having a badge when they apply for the internship would help us make a better decision on who is a right fit to our job. But so that leads me to ask you, who is going to be offered the opportunity to earn the badge? Will it be every high school student, every junior and senior, only those in the CTE pathways?
We're going to offer it to anyone. And that could include even students who are already out of high school. As I said, the badges were originally designed for college age youth. So if we have students at Sac City College that may be West Sac High School graduates, or even others who, have moved here from somewhere else, we would love to see the more the better, I think. So anybody who wants to try to earn these is welcome to do so. They are, as I said, they're challenging to earn. So we want everybody to take advantage of them.
Oh, I love that idea. I noticed one of the criteria was trusting the process, and I need to take that lesson.
So Jeff, this is Commissioner Guerra. So a suggestion, I'm not sure if this is fits within your program. Actually, two suggestions. One is if you could include, if you make sure you include some kind of resume and interviewing skills, I think that would be extremely valuable to the participants, and it would increase the success rate of them landing jobs and selling themselves in an interview to local businesses. The second suggestion, and I wish I could take credit for this, but I participated in a very successful career development center in college, and I'm on the recruiting end through my business and worked with a lot of career development centers also. And one of the keys that I've seen in successful career development places and placement is to work with the chamber, to work with the local high school, and maybe sponsor or offer a career fair. Not a career fair, bring local businesses on campus to interview people specific that have participated in this program. So if you participate in the program, the perk is you get access to all the businesses in West Sacramento that have openings. And the perk to the businesses is they're only interviewing candidates that have this credential or participated in this program. And ultimately, the product, the individuals, it's not the badges that are going to sell the program. It's the skills that they're able to communicate during the interview process, and then if they get hired, the skills that they're going to demonstrate when they're, working. So, to me, that's the key is bringing those two together, matching the participants with businesses that have openings and giving them a leg up with the interview process for both internships, part-time jobs, full-time jobs.
I think that's a great idea. If we can get businesses to agree to it, I will, it's a great idea. Giving an advantage to youth who have made the effort to earn these credentials. As far as the focus on resumes and interviewing skills, we do work pretty closely with the career technical education teachers at in the school district in Washington Unified, and I know that part of their curriculum includes resumes and interviewing skills. Now, whether it's enough, I can't say, but we have limited resources, and so we focus on what we can do, and I think having these micro credentials are one thing we can do. That helping kids with their interview skills. For example, they do a freshman building building foundations for success at River City, and that includes mock interviews, and then I think they may do resumes when they're freshmen, but then they definitely do them as part of those CTE courses. But of course, not all students take the CTE or career technical education courses. But we do try to work together with the school district so that we're not duplicating their efforts, and so that we are reinforcing what they do. But if there's always more that can be done. And giving kids more practice with interviewing and resume writing. I've seen, as administering the internship program, I get resumes from students that are not great. So they definitely could use some help in that regard. So it's a good suggestion. Commissioner Kim.
Thank you. Actually, you just reminded me of another group that's doing something similar. Have you coordinated with the YOLO Workforce Board, or the YOLO WIB and the YOLO Works and the YOLO, job centers? Because I know they do a lot of similar credentialing. Is there any overlap or opportunity of coordination to avoid, duplication?
There may be some opportunities for cooperation. I think that the WIB, of course, Denise is part of the WIB, and so we are connected to it in that way. I've presented to them in the past, not on this topic, but on something else. So I'm connected to them. I've also spoken with Erica Johnson, I believe is her name, at the county. We're also kind of cooperating with Yolo County Office of Education. So we're looking at areas where we can cooperate. I think that a lot of their work focuses on WIOA, and whereas we are looking at kind of a broader cross section of students, and yet also more narrow because we're focusing on West Sacramento instead of the whole county. So there's definitely some areas for cooperation, and when those things come up, we will definitely take advantage of it. I know that, for example, YCOE, the Yolo County Office of Education, is working on a work readiness certificate, and so that's something that we could potentially promote to the students who are interested in these credentials, so they could get multiple credentials.
We're actually also considering bringing a presentation about Yolo County's workforce development, and we work very closely with Erica Johnson on the staff of the WIB, and I know Denise is chairman. So that's also a very appropriate connection that we will be making.
Okay. Any other final questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your great suggestions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff, and round of applause. This item too doesn't require any action by the board, by the commission. It was just to listen to the presentation and give you feedback, and it sounds like you got feedback. And as I said to Denise, Jeff and Justine, you are welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, but you are also welcome to go eat dinner.
Thank you.
And now we do have the item that requires some action from the commission at the end of the presentation. And so we'll kick it over to Katie to talk at everybody's favorite subject, fees.
So good evening, Chairwoman White. You're absolutely right. It's everybody's favorite topic. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Katie Yancey. I don't know that I've had an opportunity to present to a majority of you yet. I think the last time I was at this commission was in 2019 when I was presenting the original request to have this commission support the creation of a bank of impact fee credits. And so I'm here to give you an update on that program. And I'm also here to kind of tell you how it's evolved through our budgetary process, what that means for this next phase of work that we're looking to undertake. We did complete a study that was referenced in your staff report by a company called EPS, and they really did help us look at the competitiveness of our fees. And there's a series of recommendations, including the staff report, that we're hoping that you will vote yes for, so that we can begin our work on maintaining the competitive advantage in our urban districts for private development. So with that, I'm going to have a brief PowerPoint presentation, brief-ish, to share with you. And hopefully you can see it. Are we all good to go there? Can everybody see my PowerPoint presentation? Fantastic. So thank you. So as I mentioned, this is an update on the Bank of Impact Fee Credits program that we established in 2019 with the budget. This commission approved the recommendation to establish this one-time, it was a one-time $400,000 budget allocation for the 2-year budget that we had for 2019, 2020, and 2020 through 2021. With the most recent budget adoption, we actually created a trust fund with that ongoing allocation and made it ongoing. And then it brought back anything that we hadn't spent in those previous years and deposited it into the trust fund. So it is now an ongoing appropriation out of our Measure G funds, our economic development funds, for the purposes of sustaining this program. And the next slide, to the next slide. So just to remind everybody, what we did with what this program was designed to do, which is now called the Housing Assistance Trust Fund Program, with the recent changes that the council approved with the budget, were to realize stalled projects that had gone through that process of getting their entitlements in place, conforming to the specific plans or the development plans that we had in our urban infill areas. They were trying to realize and take advantage of the public investments the city had put into those districts, and then they just were running into feasibility issues. And so that was the design of this program, was to help us overcome those feasibility issues that we were running into with these projects. These were projects that were desired. These are projects that are consistent with all of our land use planning documents. They're consistent with the urban standards that we built into our infrastructure programs, and they just were running into feasibility issues. And since the goal of the Housing Assistance Trust Fund Program, and effectively the goal of this department, is to grow the property tax space, having projects stall out when they are right on the cusp of pulling a building permit is not aligning with our goal and our mission. So I thought I'd just go through really quickly explaining why I'm here talking about impact fees and how that relates to growing the property tax base. So at the bottom, the foundational element of the work that economic development does, in conjunction with many of the other departments in the city, is to create the certainty of entitlements in our urban infill areas. Infill development is extremely challenging. You have a situation where oftentimes you have multiple developers that need to work together to upgrade, decommission, and bring in new infrastructure to support more than one user. And it's that compact development that's the goal. And it's that very much that compact development that creates these problems in sort of creating piecemealed, bite-sized chunks of system-wide infrastructure. It's really hard to just build a part of a water tank. It's really hard to build just part of a sewer pump station. And so these are the challenges with infill development. And so a lot of what we try to do in economic development is first create certainty of the entitlement process and create opportunities for projects if there's existing capacity in the system to build by right. Meaning you don't just go, you meet design review criteria, you meet the fire code, you pay your building permit, and you're able to build by right. The next sort of level on top of that economic development does, again, to grow the property tax base, is look at those strategic capital improvements that support the growth in these urban areas and that can leverage public-private partnerships. And sometimes it's public-public partnerships. Sometimes it's the city partnering with the state because we received a grant to do infill infrastructure improvements, or we're partnering with an affordable housing project and the developer for that. And we're collectively going after a grant to both support their affordable housing project and our infrastructure projects. And then, so once we've kind of done that, the thought is that once we've done the certainty of entitlements, created that CEQA, created that right by that build by right scenario, then we've built those system-wide infrastructure improvements, often leveraging a lot of different dollars. The hope is that there are these finished lots there that the private sector can say, I'm ready to invest. And what's been happening recently in the city of West Sacramento after we've made these various investments is that we are running into financial feasibility issues with our target projects that meet the use and intent, that meet the vision, but just are not able to get their performance to pencil out enough to actually go vertical. One of the items that was in the objective of the Housing Assistance Trust Fund program was to address this issue of feasibility. Are we competitive? Are we making sure that projects aren't getting stalled? Are we making sure that projects are getting realized? And that's happening after we reach that point where we've created entitlement certainty and we've created a framework for projects to just come in and pull their building permits because they don't have to go build a sewer pump station. They don't have to go build a water tank. We have already sort of built a system in that has taken care of those system-wide improvements for them, and they're just coming in and they're taking advantage of that infrastructure. And I wanted to show you this picture because this shows the area that we looked at in the EPS study. There were 6 districts in the urban areas that we looked at, 3 on West Sacramento side and 3 on Sacramento side. And I wanted you to call attention to the table that I added to this diagram, because you can see in the 3 West Sacramento districts, we have spent millions, almost $100 million in creating that uncertainty, creating those specific plans, doing CEQA documents, running traffic models, putting new sewer, water, storm drainage, roads, trails, water tanks into these areas in hopes of spurring private investment consistent with that pyramid model that I showed you earlier. However, despite all that promise and investment, we just were not seeing dirt turnover as quickly as we thought we were going to. And what we were hearing from the development community, both anecdotally and then in our own experiences as we were attempting to negotiate development agreements or looking at these one-off case-by-case fee reductions, was that our fees were too high, that our impact fees specifically were too high, and that they had not been adjusted to capture, one, this incredible investment that had occurred in our infill districts, or 2, that they just did not reflect sort of modern thinking and modern methodologies when it comes to these nexus studies that are required to be prepared in order to collect impact fees. And so we asked EPS to study this phenomenon and tell us, is this something that you can demonstrate, or is this just something that we're going to continue to rely on anecdotal evidence? And they came back and they said, we believe we can demonstrate it. And so we had them look at 3 prototypes. And this diagram that I have for you here is the first prototype, which was to look at the office cost burden by square foot of development for these 6 districts. And as you can see, there's actually 4 tiers here on West Sacramento. And that's because in the Bridge District, we have a 2-tier fee structure. Tier 1 is all of the development that occurs up to 1 million square feet. That's our sort of catalytic threshold. We're looking to bring projects in. And so our fees are the lowest under the tier 1 structure. Under the tier 2 structure, we pick up some additional regional fees, and our fees do go up under the tier 2 structure. But as you can see for office, in comparison to the Sacramento districts, the Bridge District is competitive. However, in the Washington district and in our central business district, we are not competitive in the urban downtown core. And as all these 3 districts, Washington, Central Business District, and the Bridge District, are all intended to be mixed use, we need to be able to find a way to attract these office and commercial users, but we will not be able to do it when these projects are suffering from such a high competitive disadvantage. Here's a single family prototype that we looked at. You see a similar trend. Bridge District Tier 1 is competitive with the other Sacramento districts. And once we move into Tier 2 and into the Washington and Central Business Districts, we are not competitive. And we have almost twice as many fees that we're collecting for this type of a development in those areas. The multifamily fee burden, which is the multifamily is the key to infill development. You have to have multifamily in order to take advantage of all of those climate change, compact development, greenhouse gas emission reductions that are expected to occur with infill development. We also struggle similarly with multifamily fee burdens, as you see in the other 2 prototypes that we have. And again, with only the Bridge District Tier 1 being competitive with the other 3 districts that are in Sacramento. So EPS obviously took this information and said, we will do some feasibility studies. We will look at performance for projects, and we will see if the one cost for development that the city has control over, we can't control the cost of our land. We cannot control the cost of materials. We can't control the cost of construction. We can't control the rent. We can control the impact fees that we're collecting and the other development fees that we're collecting. And as such, EPS came back and said there are target reductions that you could make based on these various different types in these various different districts to make them competitive with the 3 Sacramento districts that are competitively advantaged over West Sacramento right now. And as such, you can see these targets here. They are about $20,000 per unit in the Washington district and the Central Business District. It's about half that when we move into the Tier 2. And as you can see, no reduction is needed under the Tier 1 scenario for multifamily under the Bridge District Tier 1 fee structure. We see this even more staggering when it comes to the office. The Bridge District is really competitively positioned from its under office projects for its impact fees for both Tier 1 and Tier 2. And again, you see the same issue popping up again, where we are $15, $20 more per square foot for development of an office type in our infill urban areas and in our Central Business District area. So with that, we're coming to you tonight. We have a plan. Fear not. This is not just all bad news. We want to go to our city council, and we want to continue to do this research and analysis and say, let us figure out how to extend the Tier 1 fee structure in the Bridge District. We've demonstrated that that keeps us competitively advantaged with the other projects in the region. And we think we have a path forward to do that. And we will work closely with our finance department to get those numbers where we need them to be so that we continue to bring in development without sacrificing on the back end the collection of those impact fees that are necessary for infrastructure to support growth. We are also asking for this commission to bless a recommendation to the city council to direct economic development staff to put together a schedule, a methodology to help reform and update these sort of outdated allocation methodologies, and to bring in things like credits, which are really essential in an infill area, and sort of refocus the intent of these nexus studies so that they incorporate these urban standards and they incorporate more modern methodologies about how they should be calculated. And there really is a connection, not just to are you funding growth, funding the projects that are necessary for growth, but that you're also not becoming such a barrier that you never see any growth. We need to collect impact fees to build this critical infrastructure, but if our impact fees are too high, we don't collect any impact fees and that infrastructure never gets constructed and we never see the return on our investment and the growth in the property tax base. And as such, to test all of this, to ensure that the numbers that we're hearing from the developers, and we're hearing as we're negotiating our development agreements, and we're hearing as we're preparing these one-off memos to say, this project, which has no parking, does not need to be paying a traffic impact fee because there's no cars coming out of it, or it's parked at a really reduced rate and it's on a high quality transit stop. So they don't need to be collecting the traffic impact fees, an amount that's in our studies. As we're doing all of this, we realize that we do need a more systematic approach to really provide immediate relief. And as such, we're recommending that this commission recommend that the city council direct us to develop a temporary targeted development impact fee reduction program that focuses on just the Washington district, just the central business district, and just on multifamily and mixed use projects, because those targets are they're reasonable. They likely could be obtained. We're not talking about eliminating all the impact fees in those areas. And really what we're looking at is these areas are transit priority areas that are struggling to attract, infill residential and mixed use development that is so consistent with the SACOG blueprint and the other climate change initiatives, including things that were included in the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change. So with that, I'll just end my presentation. In case you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I just wanted to have an opportunity to sort of walk you through why we're here tonight and why we would like to continue our work on addressing this last sort of bit of the pyramid, which has to do with the feasibility of projects and ensuring that we get the city gets a return on its investment for all of the work that it's put into these districts to date. With that, I thank you. And I will stop sharing. Please go ahead, Commissioner Kim.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I was hoping that PowerPoint might be available later on. Granted, I did screenshot, I think, everything, so maybe I don't need it after all. So let's say there are 2 projects or 3 projects that have stalled. Do you have another internal criteria that guides which project is prioritized, that impact fee fund? So for example, we have one project that's being built by a multi-$100 million company, or one that's a small developer. Yeah. Is that factored in? And then are there other criterias like affordable housing being developed? I know, when we first started, there was this mandate of like equity framing. So like, is affordable housing considerations also part of it?
So I'm going to answer the second question first, if that's okay, which has to do with the affordable housing. So affordable housing is obviously something that the city strives to put at the forefront of its development in infill areas. It's not an afterthought. It's really integrated into the system that we are trying to create. And so we use a lot of mechanisms besides this besides this program, which is designed to sort of help unlock stalled projects. We have an overabundance of affordable housing right now in the Washington district, and we do not have affordable housing in the central business district, because that's not typically a function that happens in the central business district. So to answer your question, we have a lot of successful programs there that are designed to ensure that affordable housing happens. A lot of times we are a co-developer in affordable housing projects. For example, we have one that we're working on right now where we're contributing land, we're contributing a loan, we contributed infrastructure improvements with the previous phase of the project. And so that's what this program is designed to do, because we have so many other programs that we use to ensure that affordable housing is built, including like our housing trust fund. We have a housing trust fund that's designed specifically to be used for affordable housing. So this is not for that. This is for private investment, because diverse income requires as much that you support affordable housing as you support housing that's at market rate by design, that's obtainable, all the way up to luxury. They create that diversity of income that is an objective in our infill areas, because that is the kind of environment where you have property tax yield coming in, you have people taking advantage of high transit, you have people being able to walk to work, because you do need that diversity of housing stock and that diversity of the workforce in order to do that. So we're not looking to just sort of concentrate one housing stock type into those areas. We do want that multi-tiered. So that's how that answers your question about the affordable housing piece. The second piece, we are still developing this program. So this targeted impact fee program will have to have criteria in it. You'll absolutely be looking at having to have some kind of criteria in it that's designed to, achieve the vision and the outcome of what those infill districts are supposed to be doing and achieving all of those objectives, right? We can't just be having people come in and barely meeting the bare minimum of the design and then suddenly being able to take up this really precious land. What I will tell you is this: infill development is very expensive and it's very hard to do. And we recognize that it's a very, very valuable commodity. It is a renewable resource, but it does not transfer over very often. You got one chance to get a project right because it's going to be there for 50 plus years. And so we will take that into consideration as we're looking at projects. With that, I want to just turn it over and ask Katie Jacobson if she has anything she wants to add, because we do have a couple of projects that we have targeted for use because we know that they're stalled, and I'll see if she wants anything that she wants to add about those particular projects and why we wanted to work with those developers.
Good evening, Chair, Hyde, and members. We did enter into development agreements as a mechanism that we did have available in order to use some of this funding that Council had appropriated for this purpose. One of those projects is the KIND project, which is attainable. It's a combination of covenant restricted affordable units and attainable by design, workforce housing for teachers, firefighters, hotel workers. So those, that was a very unique and innovative project. We implemented it with a development agreement that's under construction now. There's another project also in Washington that we also used a development agreement in order to incentivize it because it's so important to our mixed use goals, because we need housing in that area, that those large office buildings like the Ziggurat and Calsters, that those wealth managers, those mid-level managers in those offices can simply walk or bike to work. Also, the other thing I wanted to point out is that it's real that what Katie was talking about with diversity of housing stock and of income in these neighborhoods, you have to have a certain number of residential units at various levels to support the neighborhood serving businesses and make those businesses viable and make that area also attractive. And that's how you achieve a true mixed use, which meets our greenhouse gas reduction targets.
I just wanted to also add to Commissioner Kim that this program is not going to be accessed through a development agreement. And development agreements by nature are projects that have some kind of community benefit established already for them. And so you go through this long, arduous, and often expensive process of putting together a development agreement. We wanted to create a program that would help those projects that cannot afford that expense, cannot afford that energy and those intensive use of resources to still get, unlocked, to still get moving forward, to still become realized. And so I think we will have to be very careful with the criteria that we're going to be recommending. But I think I just wanted you to know it's sort of fitting into a larger structure of tools that we use to again, ensure that once we've made all this supply of land available, that it actually gets filled with projects that are consistent with our vision.
Right. So I just wanted to reinforce the point, Katie. So anything we do with development fees moving forward, they have to be uniform by law. They have to be nexus based. They have to be uniform. They have to be applied to everyone. We can create criteria for a reduced fee in terms of the city's climate goals and things like that. But what we're planning on, what she's recommending tonight is very time limited, temporary, year or two. Then as we move forward, what we need to do by law has to be uniform and applied to everyone in the same way.
And that would be the second recommendation, is creating those consistent methodologies and approaches to reforming those nexus studies. Commissioner Kim, did I answer your question, or maybe I over answered your question?
No, that was very helpful. And, you know, my position is I strongly support reduction of these fees so we can encourage this kind of development and help, like you said, I like what you used, unlock these stalled projects. And thank you, Mrs. Jacobson, for those examples of those projects. I'm actually very curious on the teacher housing. I think that's a brilliant idea. So looking forward to learning more about that. Thanks.
Katie, thank you for that. You know, I'm a big supporter of what we can do to get projects moving again without doing the race to the bottom of who has the lowest fees. My question for you is about the recommendation you're asking for us, which says direct staff to do additional research and analysis. Do you have an idea? Is that couple months, couple years, ongoing until the end of time?
No, it is not. I don't intend to be coming back with another update in 2 years on here's all this research and analysis that I've been doing. We are definitely at the point where we've confirmed our suspicions. We've moved beyond anecdotal evidence. And now what we need to research and analyze are what are the legal parameters? What are the targets that we're looking to do? As Katie mentioned, you know, there are certain constraints that we have in implementing a program like this. And so we need to make sure that we stay above board. And so this really is that due diligence work that is always done before you launch a new program. Am I staying within the parameters of the law? What are the chances are that I'm going to be successful? How much flexibility should I put into tweaking the program if something comes up and I'm realizing I should have zigged and I zagged? And so that's what we're doing. And my hope is that in 6 months, 8 months at the latest, that we will have those answers to those questions, and we can more specifically answer any questions like how many people do you expect to serve, and how many projects do you expect to serve in 1 year? What kind of projects are you anticipating are coming through the door? How many have stalled, and how many do you expect will be unstalled? So I think that that's the sort of the piece that we have missing, is that this is like the scientific method. We observe something, we've now studied it, we have a hypothesis, and now we have to kind of go test it. And these recommendations will give us the authority and the direction to go out and test it.
Great, thank you.
One more quick question. So just on a practical level, how this is happening. So this fund is going to be dedicated, again, only for projects that are stalling or have stalled? Or is this going to be provided right from the beginning, like pre-development agreement?
So it's going to be permitted for projects that are consistent with what the objectives were. So the objectives we brought to you in 2019, and those were realize stalled project, adjust fees to apply urban standards, adjust fees to be competitive, grow the property tax base, attract private investment. I can keep going, but you see that it's more than just unlock project. We do, it's a little like if Denise was here, she'd say there's the two sides of the coin. There's business retention and expansion and attraction. We need to retain the projects that are in our pipeline, and we need to expand their interest and getting them to come back and do their second or third project with us. And then we need to attract new businesses. We need to attract new development. I don't know that that's our goal, but that last piece of attracting new development is the mission of the recommendation for the targeted impact fee program. But it is certainly the mission of extending the tier 1, and it is certainly the mission of creating that uniform methodology for updating the nexus studies in our master plans.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments?
So hearing nothing else, this does require action from the commission. So we're looking for a motion. And the recommended motion is to direct staff to do the additional research, an item that they would bring to council for approval. You can also make a different motion if you choose. And you do have some options to those in your package. Commissioner Kim, if you're talking, you're on mute.
You surprised me when I heard that there's a different motion that could be made.
You can always say, go back and do more research and bring it back to us. You can always say, you know, we think you're done with this. So we don't, staff always gives us options to the recommended.
Well, I think this was a fantastic presentation. All the questions that I had were answered, and I definitely support both the spirit and the vision of what the staff is proposing. So I'd like to make the motion for the staff to continue additional research on the DIF reduction program.
Is that all three recommendations, Commissioner Kim?
Yes, all three recommendations per the presentation.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Thornton. I second that motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you like to take the roll call, please?
Thank you, Chairperson White. Okay, Commissioner Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Kim,
Yes.
Commissioner Thornton,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
and Chairperson White.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. And we appreciate you staying with us. And you are welcome to stay to the end of the meeting, or you can go have dinner now.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are at our final agenda item, which is kind of our wrap up. So the first is requests and comments from any of the commissioners to the staff. And remember, whatever you request, they must do, and it involves their precious staff time. A lesson I learned when I offhandedly asked for something that required a lot of work several years ago. Okay, hearing none from our commissioners, staff update.
Thank you. Chair and commission members, my updates are on August 25th. We had a grand opening of the Hilton Home to Suites. That's just a couple parcels down from City Hall on West Cap. You'll be receiving an invitation to the Spring Hill Suites ribbon cutting, which is going to be on October 12th from 11 to 1. Also wanted to let you know that the supportive housing project that the city has been undertaking in partnership with Mercy Housing, led by our housing staff, in particular Raul Huerta, will be completing next month, and we will be sending you an invitation to that ribbon cutting as well. Very excited about that. That was a very complex and difficult project that took staff a lot of time and a lot of financial contributions from nonprofits, and as well as state and federal funds. We also, I just wanted to update you that the council adopted the 5-year housing element. It's an update to the general plan, and this was heard by your commission a few times and recommended that council adopt it after your comments had been taken into account and it had been reflected. So that was quite a big milestone. Last Wednesday, council executed a contract for the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program with the California Hispanic Chamber. And the Micro Enterprise Technical Assistance Program was heard and recommended by the commission to the council in 2019. So thank you for that support. That was a $60,000 allocation from CDBG funds. And that program is targeted to provide technical assistance to low and moderate income individuals that are owning currently or working towards developing a small business in West Sacramento. And it's carried out through, we provide business development workshops and individual business and financial counseling and classes, and that's made available in English and Spanish. Also on August 30th, the Art Commission approved an art installation for the Riverwalk North Extension project that was selected by a panel of artist professionals and Arts Commission members. And that project, we're almost ready to put it out to bid in December. We're completing all of the final property acquisitions, and that will be a huge economic development project because it really will bring a lot of new users onto the Riverwalk from where the Riverwalk currently ends at the I Street Bridge. It's going to extend the Riverwalk up towards the rivers, past the boat ramp. And this was the top priority of the neighborhood out of the Washington Realized document. There's been nuisance problems and security problems in the area. So this is creating a paved, lit new path that will draw all kinds of bicycle and pedestrian users. And it will be infused with this really interesting art, which people can stop and contemplate. So I'm really excited that we started doing this again with commission recommended CDBG design funds 5 years ago. So to see it going out to bid now, it's really rewarding for staff. In terms of private development updates, I just wanted to I was going to note again the KIND project in Washington, which I already mentioned in my comment earlier, the affordable and attainable by design workforce housing. And then you may have noticed in the Bridge District, there's a large parking structure and residential structure coming up actually on the riverfront, just to the north of the barn. And that's the first urban dense mixed-use residential project on the city's waterfront area. So that was part of our Prop 1C requirements, that housing. The city committed it and passed it through to the development, to the owner and the developers in that district. So they were obligated to build this as a condition of us getting about $23 million of state smart growth funds. So we're really pleased to see that coming up. And that is all my updates.
Great, thank you. That property that's going up, is that the one that's going to have the beach? Looks like a little beach.
We're still evolving yes, absolutely. It's the one that had the beach, and it was going to have beach volleyball courts. I'm not sure that that poses problems for parks maintenance. So I'm not sure that those amenities are all going to be realized, but that frontage and what will be there, Katie's been working on that with a developer and come up with some fabulous designs. At this point in time, everybody's really just been focused on the structural, getting that permit, and we'll still be sort of evolving that Riverwalk area.
I thought Katie Yancey wanted to talk about the beach, but just pop back on there.
I just, in case you had a question, I didn't want to ask, I didn't want to start jumping in. If you had a specific question about how that was going along, I wanted to be available.
No, it's like every time I look at the whole Bridge District plan, I always orient on the barn on one side and the beach on the other. So I just needed to know where that beach was. But I
think Commissioner Kim, did you have a question?
Yes, I had a quick question about the City of West Sacramento's plan on getting funds from the American Rescue Plan. Is there funds from the American Rescue Plan that are coming to the city? And is there like an order of like a priority of how those funds are going to be distributed, allocated?
I would have to ask the finance director for more specific information, but absolutely we're receiving those funds. I don't want to throw the number out in case I'm not remembering it correctly. It's significant. Primarily, they have to target to restore lost revenues, but I know there's other potential uses being explored, including expanding affordable housing stock, particularly at-risk homeless housing is one of the projects I know is under consideration, and they are considering other uses of it. I think there's a budget update happening in October, and that will be including a presentation on how those funds are being programmed.
Thank you.
And Katie J, just for clarity, when you say a budget presentation, you mean to City Council?
Yes. Yeah.
Not to us. Yes.
No.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. With that, then I believe we need a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Thornton, I motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Kim, a second.
All right, and Madam Clerk, please take our final roll call of the night.
Thank you. Commissioner Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Kim,
Here.
Commissioner Thornton,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Here.
and Chairperson White.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
Night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
All right.
Recording stop.